Okay, for this video lesson I'd like to concentrate on William Blake's London. And again, it's off the AQA Power and Conflict Anthology. This video lesson is just going to look at an analysis of the actual poem itself. It's not preparing you necessarily for the exam question, which will be a comparison question. Check some of the other videos for tackling a question in the Power and Conflict Anthology. So you have to compare each poem under certain criteria. Okay, so this poem was this video is just going to be an analysis of the poem itself. It will focus on all the elements that you'll need to successfully answer that question. So without further ado, let's plough on. Okay, so a bit of background. William Blake himself lived 1757 to 1827. He believed in radical social change to alleviate the suffering of the majority. He was quite progressive in his attitude. He was very much had an issue with with the power of the church and the way the church treated people, the poor in particular. This particular poem belongs to his volume of poetry called Songs of Experience, in which he explores how humans have lost their innocence and how society has become corrupted, and society is very much governed by the church at that time. Okay, so what's this poem about? Well, it focuses on the narrator as he walks, and his observations as he walks around London, and he notices that everywhere seems affected by misery and poverty, and that the people in power who are responsible do nothing to help. Okay, the title of the poem, London, okay, implies that the focal point of the poem is London. Themes that are contained within: power of humans, loss, anger, individual experience and suffering. And I'll do this on each of the poem analysis where I'll identify the themes, and then you can compare. You can soon identify which poems can be compared with which other ones. Right. One area you must talk about, I know I sometimes talk about how the structure of an answer on the poetry section is SMILE. So structure, mood, meaning, imagery, language and effect. So form and structure will have to feature in your answer, and you'll compare how two particular poems are structured and in your opening paragraph or two. So this poem is a dramatic monologue. That's one person talking, one voice in it. It's arranged over 4 quatrains, which follow a regular A-B rhyme scheme. Quatrains, it's just a stanza with 4 lines. The regular A-B rhyme scheme, there's your identified technique. Now you have to explain or explore what the effect of that technique might be. So in this case, this could reflect the footsteps of the narrator, or echo the relentless suffering of the city. So it's endless. It goes on and on and on. A B A B A B A B A B A B A B A B. There's 4 of them. So that covers that. But it's repetitive, and it just implies or hints at an endless suffering, no end to the suffering of the poor, the majority. The structure, so the ideas contained. So the first 2 stanzas focus on the people he sees as he's going about this walk. The next is on the institutions, and the final, returning to the people. The final line in each stanza sums up that stanza in a powerful statement, and we'll look at that in a couple of slides. Another area you have to focus on, language and imagery. So Blake creates a very bleak image of London. The language is emotive and repeated to emphasise the conditions: cry, marks, every, fear, for example. He holds a very negative view of the city, and he's very persuasive in conveying this view. He appeals to the senses, almost personifying London in the process, having it cry out in anguish even. The closing oxymoron, marriage hearse. An oxymoron puts 2 opposing words together consecutively. So the marriage hearse, strange hearse associated with funerals, marriage, starting of something, a happy occasion, highlights how he believes that everything is destroyed. Even things that should be enjoyed are suffering their own deaths too. Okay, now if I'm going too fast for you, obviously pause it, have your pen and pad Ready? Take some notes. I'm sure there's plenty of nuggets of gold here. Okay, so taking the first two stanzas and analysing them in a little more detail. I wander through each chartered street, near where the chartered Thames does flow, and mark in every face I meet marks of weakness, marks of woe. In every cry of every man, in every infant's cry of fear, in every voice, in every ban, the mind-forged manacles I hear. Quite clearly a couple of things that stand out, the ABAB rhyme scheme that you can spot. If you don't know how to do work out what the rhyme scheme is, the last word on the first line, street, you give the letter A to. The last word on the second line, if it rhymes with street, you also give it A. If it doesn't rhyme with street, you give it B. So flow and street don't rhyme, so that's AB. The last word on the third line, meet, if that rhymes with either of the previous two, you give it that corresponding letter. So street had an A, meet and street rhyme, so that's ABA now. And woe, last word of the fourth line, and flow, AB, AB. Okay, a lot of repetition here. In every cry of man, every infant's cry of fear, every voice in every ban. Just to highlight how widespread the poverty is, the injustice is, the suffering is. Okay, let's closer analysis then. Okay, it's a dramatic monologue written in the first person. The first word of the poem, there's I, first person. Personalizes it straight away, adds to the impact. That uses an unbroken AB rhyme scheme to reflect the relentless misery of the city. Okay, first person, personalise it. I'm repeating myself now. I wander through each chartered street, so implies all of London is affected, not just one area. And that's an idea that's continued throughout. Near where the chartered Thameses flow, even powerful natural features like the River Thames are affected by humans. Every face, suffering is everywhere. Marks of weakness, marks of woe, and then every. So marks repeated, every repeated. Repetition emphasises that it is bleak everywhere and that nobody can escape it. The mind-forged manacles I hear. People are trapped, even by thoughts and attitudes. So could refer to Blake's questioning of the church's teachings, which he felt helped lead to such inequality, when in fact they should be guarding against it or acting against it. Okay, and finally, the mind-forged manacles I hear. It adds another layer of energy to the poem, appealing to the senses. The noises he hears help to portray the vivid and desperate scenes he's witnessing. So it's not just what he sees as he's walking around London, it's what he hears as well that makes him feel distinctly uncomfortable. Okay, continuing the analysis with the third and fourth stanzas. How the chimney sweepers cry, every blackening church appalls, and the hapless soldier's sigh runs in blood down palace walls. Who's responsible for the blood? Who's got the power? Who's in control? The palace. Think about that. But most through midnight streets I hear how the youthful Harlow's curse blasts the newborn infant's tear and blights with plagues the marriage hearse. And, ending the poem on the word hearse is, quite dark and bleak. Okay, that's a bit closer analysis. The chimney sweeper, emotive image of child labour. I mean, we've probably all seen the images of the little boys, little children, 5 and 6, climbing up and down the chimneys, cleaning them out. Their life expectancy was poor. They'd suffer all sorts of lung illnesses. As the sun comes out and makes me even more transparent, you can hear my voice still at least. Blackening hints that the church may be corrupt. Every blackening church appalls. This reflects his attitude towards the church. He didn't believe they were doing what they should be doing to help the people, the poor. Appalls reflects his anger. Just there before that, and the hapless soldier's sigh, sibilance, drawing your attention to that, like hapless soldier's sigh, alliteration. Okay, runs in blood down, so the hapless soldier's sigh runs in blood down palace walls, reflects inequality. He believes that ordinary people suffer whilst those in power hide and are protected behind walls. That's not how you spell and. My bad. Um, but most through midnight streets I hear how the youthful harlot's curse blasts the newborn infant's tear and blights with plagues the marriage hearse. Okay, juxtaposing the innocence of youth with the sordidness of prostitution. A harlot is a prostitute, making the point that innocence is lost the second the baby is born. You know, born into a life of poverty, no childhood to be had, and blights with plagues the marriage hearse. Graphic imagery of illness and disease rife, that means plentiful everywhere, affecting many people. Block that out. Oxymoron, linking marriage and death, implying everything has been destroyed. Everything, even the joyful things, have been destroyed in his society as he's walking around London. These are his observations. I mean, that covers the analysis of language analysis of the poem. We've got a bit of form and structure, language and imagery, and just a summary. And my mug in the way again. Main poetic devices used is dramatic monologue. Quatrains are the verses of 4 lines. Rhyme scheme ABAB. Bleak imagery, so dark imagery, negative, depressing imagery. Emotive language, appealing to the emotions of the reader. Repetition, contrast, use of senses give the poem an energy, and oxymoron there with marriage hearse. Some useful vocab to use when analysing. Impress the examiner. Anger, despair, hopelessness, futility, pain, suffering, power, trapped, visual, depiction. Another word, depiction is a synonym for shows, I suppose. Relentless, innocence and bleakness. And obviously in the exam you have to connect it to other poems, link it to other poems. So individual experience in the prelude and Imagery, anger and power of humans in checking out me history. Okay, that covers all the ingredients, I think, for a top grade answer. Obviously this isn't preparing you for the exam question, but there are plenty of little video lessons there that talk you through how to write and structure an exam answer for the anthology poetry section on the AQA syllabus. Please check in with those. It might even cover some of the poems you've got coming up in an assessment with any luck. Okay, cheerio, see you again, bye bye.